Chapter 18. Trying to throw a fastball by Hank Aaron is like trying to sneak the sun past a rooster. Curt Simmons, pitcher, Philadelphia Phillies. Clebo snorted through the night, but House slept fitfully. When he got out of bed, he was starving. He hadn't eaten since breakfast the day before. He slipped leaves of grass out from under his pillow and patted it into the kitchen while Clebo and Honey were still sleeping. His father was already at work in the shed. He had left a plate of fried bacon on a plate by the stove. House ate 3 bowls of cereal and pored over his treasure in the early morning sunlight. Poetry. Leaves of Grass was poetry. The stories he had read to Mr. Norwood Boyd, he'd understand them. He'd even admit that he liked them. But these poems? He wasn't sure what he was reading. He stared at his mother's handwriting again, Elizabeth Jackson, and at Mr. Norwood's note about the symphony song. Your mother gave these words to me. Now I give them to you as a treasure for the days ahead. Look for me in every atom that you see. The All-Stars needed rescuing in the days ahead. He stared at his note as if it had some magical answer. Finding a way to pitch in this ball game was his dilemma. The pageant was his cross to bear, and the symphony true, well, that was his mystery. Perhaps Mr. Norwood meant for the treasure to be used on this day, this very day. Their chance of playing was coming down to the wire, and House was willing to grasp at any straw. Clebo jazzed into the kitchen, searching for breakfast. Out of all the books you could get from Mean Man, you got a book on poems? He marveled. What about adventure stories, pirates, killers, rocket ships? Instead, you got The Cat Sat on the Mat. It's not like that, said House. Read me one. Clebo reached for the mashed potato bowl. They're too long. Well, read a snippet then. Clebo emptied the cereal into the mashed potato bowl and poured on the milk. House opened the book at random and found some lines underlined in blue ink. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume. For every atom belonged to me as good belongs to you. That don't make sense, said Clebo, crumbs spilling from his mouth, milk dribbling down his chin. House closed the book. Look for me in every atom that you see. Was it too far-fetched to think that Mr. Norwood Boyd knew about House's dilemma? That he meant to help? Even from beyond the grave? Nah. House was sunk, and he knew it. He wouldn't get to pitch against the Redbugs at all. Just in case, though, he shoved his book into the back pocket where his water and lunch and brought it with him to practice. Slide, 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 Ned Tolbert screamed. Clebo streaked from home to first. He hurled himself forward and reached for the bag. His body scraped the dirt and raised a tornado of dust as he slammed into first base, where Wilkie Collins caught the throw from Evans and tagged Clebo squarely on the bean. Safe! Hollered Ned Twins' brother Boone, who was playing catcher. He's out! Screamed Wilkie. He hoisted the ball heavenward, and Crow hopped around the base like he was on fire. You're blind, Wilkie! Yelled Clebo, dusting himself off and swelling with pride. I was safe by a country mile. Good play at first and good catch, Wilkie, shouted House from the pitcher's mound, but Clebo got there first. He's safe. Now watch me steal second, gloated Clebo. I'm on a roll, just like Jackie Robinson. His clothes were coated with grit. House shook his head. You don't slide into first. How many times do I have to tell you? He likes to slide, said Ned. It gives his mama more laundry to do. Clebo swiped at Ned, but Ned bobbed out of the way. You got to catch now, Clebo, said House. We don't have enough players to let you run the bases, and I need Boone in the outfield. Ned's a power hitter. Oh, House, I need a catcher. Come on, Clebo, shouted Ned on deck, swinging his Wonder Boy bat at the air. I'm up. I'm always the one to sacrifice, yelled Clebo. I want to run at the bases before we're through. Deal, said House, but we only got a little while before... Don't remind me, shouted Clebo, his voice gurgling with frustration. I know what's coming. They all did. Pageant practice was scheduled for 9 o'clock a.m. Desperation had brought the ball players to the field at 8:00 a.m. House's head had been full of clangor and questions at the kitchen table, but now that he was standing on the pitcher's mound, his focus was crystal clear. He shook out both arms to get ready for his windup. When Koufax pitched, his back leg was tethered to the mound, but the rest of him was flying, every muscle moving in a kind of lightning-fast ballet. Kleebo hunkered down behind the plate. He smacked his fist into his glove. Just lob it over and start with, House. Don't try no pyrotechnics. House leaned back into the stance, came forward into one long fluid motion like Koufax, and brought his arm completely overhand and stretched forward with a fastball throw. Wide, said Kleebo. He threw the ball back to House. House reared back and zinged a hard fastball to Kleebo. Inside and high, Kleebo stretched and snagged it. Try again, he said. Not so hard. Let's have a batter, shouted House. Ned stepped into the batter's box and swung through. Shoot me the knuckleball, House. I'm ready. Step out of the box, Ned, ordered Kleebo. He got down to business. House, don't pull back so far in your windup. I don't care what Koufax did. You can't see the strike zone when you're that far back. Your arm's in the way, and that's why the ball is going wild. House nodded. Not so far back? Still, a high kicking windup, long forward movement toward the plate, a curveball, spun with the middle finger curved vertically from the overhand throw, just like Koufax. Better, said Kleebo, catching it handily and tossing it back to House. Try your fastball. House gripped the ball with his fingers across the wide part of the seam and wound up and threw again, and one more time. Come on, cried the outfield. Let's see some action. His arm was fine, better than fine. He was sure he could feel twinges of pain from the shoulder to his elbow, but if Koufax could do it, so could he. He struck out Ned. Kleebo threw the ball to third base, and the infielders threw around the horn. You gotta let him hit the ball, House, said Kleebo, or we won't none of you get any practice. You don't have to throw so hard. House obliged. Everybody hit. Lincoln Latham picked up bad hop at second. Ned caught every pop fly. Boone got some lumber on the ball and hit a long line drive toward third. Evan Evans caught it at his gut, stumbled backward, and still gathered enough forward motion to toss the ball to House, who had run to second base. House and Evan began a pickle play with Arnold Hilderman, the runner, between them. Shouts played all around the field as Arnold ran back and forth between second and third, with House and Evan closing the gap and tossing the ball from one to the other in a rundown, until Evan finally tagged Arnold out. You gotta learn to slide, Arnie, yelled Kleebo, who had run to cover third. Boone had tagged first, where he stood on the bag next to Wilkie, and shouted, You could have thrown it to first and got me out. The play was at third, said House. Besides, Wilkie can't catch from that far away. I should be playing first base, said Kleebo. Well, I can't play catcher, said Wilkie. That's for sure, said Kleebo. I can. Striding toward the mound with her catcher's mitt on her left hand came Ruby Lavender.